Yeah. Now the technology of the Bosnian Pyramids is my kind of technology because that's stone, earth and stone. You know, we got clay. That works for me. I love that technology. I like to get my hands in it.
Right. Well, a lot of that clay also has been heated, which covers many of these big block stones, wasn't it, Jock?
Right.
Like
And
a
that's
protector,
that.
like a skin, or
That
like you said in your hypothesis, the shielding.
That's a really good segue to these photos, Gary, because I'm going to give you a choice. You're the man. You're the guy with the show. Do you want to look at concrete on the Pyramid of the Sun, or do you want to look at clay stones all across the complex?
I think we should start with the pyramid because that's the fascinating thing. I think that would draw everyone there since they can see how big it is and know that when they go there with shovels, they could dig some, and then on their relaxation time, they could do what you did and then follow us, to follow and pick up the stones. So I think the blocks on the pyramid would be good first. Look at those blocks. Wow. Please describe to us, sir, what this is. And notice the layers.
That's a really good point, the layering. That's the key point, actually, of this photo. And that's why I took it, because Semir Osmanagic pointed out after the volunteers and the employees of the foundation had excavated all of this concrete on the Pyramid of the Sun from there was about 3 meters of clay, construction clay, over this concrete. So they had to dig a lot of material out to find this. But as soon as they got to the concrete, then they noticed that there's more layers. So what we see is this top layer. We got the channeling between the blocks. We got the basic right angle there, basic right angle. But then you notice that it's not like, pudding stone, natural concrete where it would just be a big blob. No, it's a layer, a specific nether layer with a flat top, a specific nether layer with the flat top, just set on top of each other. And then there's another layer underneath, and I think I have a photo of the fourth layer that you can see. So there's 4 layers of concrete right there, and this concrete has been tested as the hardest, most durable concrete ever tested in ancient or modern times. So the Romans didn't make concrete this hard. This goes up to 133.8 megapascals. That is massively hard. Most of our concretes that we use for bridges and things, it's 60 megapascals in modern times, or maybe up to 80. So, and it could get higher than 80, but usually it's 60 to 80 in construction in modern times. This is 133.8 megapascals. So that means that it can withstand thousands of pressures of Earth's atmosphere, because megapascals refer to the pressure from the Earth's atmosphere. So anyway, I'm going to let the slideshow go so you can see more pictures of this amazing concrete. That's
right. Listeners will be able to appreciate this aspect of the show once the archive is complete and put up for you and available on the net. Wow. Look at all that. And huge rocks. These aren't, again, little sand pebbles.
Well, this is super close up to describe it for your listeners. We're looking really close up on a slab of concrete that's at a 44-degree angle, along with lots of other slabs that was excavated by volunteers and employees of the foundation and found just covering the Pyramid of the Sun. Now, this concrete is glued together with heated clay. So for your listeners, we're looking at river stones that are natural river stones, and then in between the river stones is this whitish, orangish clay that's the binder. So that's what makes it so strong. That's what makes it the hardest concrete ever tested in the world, in history, and in modern times. I mean, it's unbelievable how hard this concrete is, and it's all over the Pyramid of the Sun. So we've got this clay that's the binder. It's absolutely unbelievable how they use.
It's not the clay. It's not the clay now. Sorry, Jock. It's not the clay now that deposited all this soil from whatever deposited the soil. It's not that clay. This is different. This is baked and deliberate part of the construction clay, correct?
Right. It's natural clay, but it's not like it
wasn't deposited from the floods.
Exactly. It wasn't deposited. It was either the ancients magicked it up with their technology out of the ethers, or they found it on Earth and then used it as an artificial construction
They knew how to
material.
make it, process it, deliver it, and labor it.
And yeah, and that baking is a huge mystery, because you say to yourself, well, how did they make slabs of concrete that were many, many tons in weight and not have it slide off a 44-degree angle on the Pyramid of the Sun? How'd they heat that up? Look how hard this stuff is. I mean, you can see the hardness of it.
Because it acts like a glue, a binder. It becomes part as hard, if not harder, than the material it's binding it all with.
Well, that's a point that actually one of these photos we can probably see that where the concrete cracked, it cracked on the stone. It didn't crack in the clay, so the clay is actually harder than the stone.
That is amazing, and that right there is a telltale sign of high advanced intelligence and capability. Now, what is that stone, like right there, the one that it's between the layers? That looks like a different color. What kind of stone is that between the concrete layers? Maybe that's concrete too, but it has a brownish color.
Well, the thing is with the ancients in Bosnia, I've noticed that the concrete morphs.
The spacers, as it was.
It morphs and it looks like sandstone, but if you really, in some spots, but if you really sort of dig in or just scratch into it, you see that it's still concrete. It's just that there's not as many pebbles there. You see, so
all right, so it's not like the concrete they made of the blocks and be layered above and below. It's like a spacer block of some sort.
It's the same. It's the same. It's just that a material and the same hardness. It's just that it's different. I think it's an earthquake spacer. In other words, they always, how they do in Egypt. They have these different shape, and in Peru, the different shaped blocks,
right.
And they're always making sure that it's not just. It's not like a Roman thing where everything would just topple from an earthquake. It's always slightly different to the next block. So
earthquake proof. This is earthquake proofing.
Now, and also, sorry, I just wanted to show people.
Go ahead. Yeah.
This side of the concrete proves that this is not natural stone. See, Graham Hancock calls this natural pudding stone. He says it looks like natural pudding stone, and you say, well. He came to the complex for 3 days and he looked at everything. He got a personal tour and he says that this is natural. Now, we know it's not natural for many reasons, but one clear, 100% clear reason is that the stones on the side of the block are not protruding out as they would in a natural block. In other words, if this was natural, and even if nature made us a nice flat right angle for some reason,
we'd see all the rocks on it, like we did on top.
Yeah, it'd be knobby. But see how it's flat, and it's like they pressed them in, and they have the flat side to it. So it's clearly constructed. I mean, there's lots of lines of evidence to show that this is constructed, but that you can't say this is natural pudding stone. It's not even. So this is the site where the gypsies came, and it looks jumbled because there was some dynamiting here. But like I say, that's just a small part of the complex. So people don't have to worry about the whole thing being dynamited. This is just one little tiny excavation that we did.
Right. And because those other sites, that area where the blocks, like maybe what we were just seeing for all we know, I remember seeing videos and the pictures linked again through the facesofmars.com, and take that on your journey, everybody, to these blocks. They look similar in size and they're patterned. They're not all butted up against each other, but like how deliberately spaced and evenly placed, in my opinion. Are they the same width and height, and length, these giant concrete blocks there on the surface that's covering it, and is it the same sizes under the space blocks?
Well, what's weird about this whole complex is that nothing is the same. So it almost looks like if you go from this excavation on the Pyramid of the Sun, literally 25 meters to the left, if you just walk to the left of this photo, you'll see another excavation that Samir has done through the foundation, and we're probably going to see these photos in a second. I think they're in this. And they're completely different looking slabs, and they're bigger and thicker slabs. And you're like, well, it looks like a different civilization came along, or at least a different artist or a different engineer said, hey, let's try it this way. I mean, it's so weird the way it's done, and it's the same all over the complex. It doesn't. It's like different civilizations came or something. I'm not really sure what the heck the answer is to that. I'm just going to skip ahead because this is still that one site. Let's skip ahead. Okay.
That is amazing.
I'm gonna search slabs because if you still want to do, because I know slabs will take us to the other site. Concrete slabs. Okay, that's in the winter. We don't want that. Let's see. This will still give us some idea. This is even though there's some snow there, this is much bigger, thicker. If you stand next to this thing, if you stand right next to that guy, it's up to your hip. I mean, it's literally 3 feet thick.
Yeah, they're huge. Oh man, I can't see how anyone could claim that is natural. There's no way.
I mean,
but it makes you wonder, and it makes you think, because that being the case, then this must have been poured on site.
Yeah.
And or not very far if it was poured. I think it was poured directly on site. That means layer, and then layer 2, and then layer 3, layer 4 has to all be done on site.
Yeah, and just so people know, all this was under construction clay. This was excavated, so no one had seen this for tens of thousands of years until the volunteers and the employees took it out, took out the clay.
So yeah, there's no big Mack trucks and as far as we know, backhoes and cement trucks. I mean, which you would need big time. I mean, notice what we use today. We couldn't do. Well, that's
the thing. The people say, why don't you use machines instead of shovels and picks? It's like, well, because we can't get a machine on a 44-degree slope.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of hard work and labor, but it'll be worth it. That's why they need thousands of arms, thousands of legs and bodies to be out there excavating this. And I know we'll get into the discussion, like we talked about offline, that people are trying to prevent by calling things protection of not digging into it or limiting where you can dig or whatnot. I think they're really scared, and you know what? I really don't see why, unless it's just the pressure from mainstream societies with their threats. I mean, I think that's the most strongest issue, unless a president would call, hey, don't undig that, but I don't really see that. I think it's more got to do with control in mainstream science. What do you think? Look at that image. Wow.
Well, I mean, what your listeners might be interested to know, that the city government was originally in favor of the project in 2005, 2006, and then a new mayor came in. She was against the project, and so for a few years she didn't help with funding. And then recently, Samir...
I want to get her bank account.
Well, Samir basically, by not fighting with her or just letting her be what she wanted to be and have her position, she eventually came around because she saw how many tourists were coming to her town to see the pyramids, and she said, you know what, we should join forces here. And so this year, she literally... Finally, the city is now approved of this project and they're joining forces. So it's absolutely fantastic. So this Visoko government is now not sort of working with the orthodoxy. Not that it was ever working with the orthodoxy.
So does that mean more areas now could be freely, experimented and dug out and checked out?
As you were sort of referring to earlier, there were some laws that were made. In fact, about 100 different laws were made during the dark years, let's call it, to protect the pyramid from the digging. In other words, they were protecting it from Samir because they didn't want him to be digging on this area for some reason. Now, they're going to take off those protections little by little, but the pyramid is so big, it's like we don't even have the manpower to dig it. There's no way. I mean, so even if there's just a little bit that's available to dig, that's great. Actually, let me just go back to this.
All of us listening up listening to this archive was able to go over there and help. And then, oh man, this would spread like wildfire all the more. And at least that's my opinion. I certainly want to push it. I would love to go there and dig myself. I got some spots I'd like to go check out where I would like to start digging, and you know of a couple of those spots, especially near the top where that light patch is that you pointed out earlier. And I still say start digging behind it.
This is a picture from a video called Spontaneous Archaeology. So you can check that out on YouTube. Now, this is a private landowner, and you and I talked about this off air. He was digging to make a patio area, a flat area on his land so he could have coffee outside, and look out on the view, because he's literally living on the side of the Pyramid of the Sun. He's got a great view, So he's digging to make a patio area, and he finds this, and he calls...
he discovers one instead.
He discovers a pyramid. He discovers these stones. This is baked clay stone, soft clay, baked clay stone, and there was soft clay here. Soft clay, baked clay stone, soft clay, baked clay stone. And people say, oh, no, it's just natural. Well, this is clearly not natural. Then you've got another layer of clay stones, thinner layer. So there's that whole video. Check it out, Spontaneous Archaeology. This shows that the ancients used different construction materials throughout the pyramid. So just above this is where the concrete was that we were just looking at, just only maybe 50 meters up the pyramid from there, and then, or further, actually a little bit further. But then you've got this baked clay stone instead of concrete. You dig through the clay. There's a little bit of soil on top, and then you dig through the clay, and then you find the first layer. Then there's more clay, then softer clay, and then you find the next layer of clay stones, and it's not concrete. So it's so weird that they morphed their materials from spot to spot on the pyramid. But let's go look at texturing, because now that we've sort of given a taste of the Pyramid of the Sun, check this thing out. This was found on Osceola Hill. Now, Osceola Hill is directly across the river from the Pyramid of the Sun. So, the Pyramid of the Sun goes all the way into the Voinica River, and you can see the construction all the way to the middle of the river, and then the Osceola Hill starts up, and that's constructed too. Now, originally, we thought that Osceola Hill was a clay quarry. In other words, it's kind of cut down, it's really steep, and so we thought, oh, that's where they got the clay for all these pyramids, but that's not the case. When you walk up and I'll show you some photos as we go here. I'll start the slideshow. But that's just a stone that I found there. There's this wild texturing on the top of the stones. You can see. It
definitely looks worked. Oh, especially that one.
It's crazy, man. So as you're walking up there's lots of gullies on this Osceola Hill, across from the Pyramid of the Sun to the east, and you see all these stones, and you're like, well, and you start to look at them close up, and you start to see this bizarre patterning, this bizarre gouging, and it's almost like a child was playing with clay, and then they said, okay, there's a stone, and let's go to
it had to be worked. It had to be worked to be pressed and worked over the contours of the blocks it was supposed to cover. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then here's
like that one. You can see it right there.
And then this is the one we were talking about 2 days ago off air, before the show, and you can see this kind of spatula-like thing there, and sort of a spatula-like thing there, and then you've got almost like a finger impression, and so this was, I brought this to the Foundation Museum, and it was too heavy to display, so we just put it right outside of Revratnica Tumulus entrance, along with some other ones. But it's and you can see the essentially straight line here, essential right angle that goes down, and it's clearly a constructed thing. We just don't know why in the heck they're spending so much time making one stone and then making another stone and then there's hundreds of millions of them in one hill that's across from a pyramid that's 10 times bigger than the hill, also with tons of stones and concrete. And you're like, well, who did all this, Right,
the time that it must have took from our standards to do this, if we were able to applicate the forces necessary and technology to be able to, wow, look at that.
So you and I were talking about this earlier. You can see how the stones lean into the face of the hill, and it's always the same in every single structure in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex centered in Visoko. You have the
It
leaning.
has the natural support. Well,
It's leaning in.
fine.
So like it's an engineering know-how. They say we know that gravity is going to help us if we lean these stones in, and it's going to be super strong. Now, what else? The other thing they did, they baked this clay stone. Then they said, you know what? We're going to put some soft clay here above it. You can press your finger into this clay. You can press your finger into this clay, and it's
Wow.
really soft. And then there's another hard baked clay stone above that, and that's what the way it
Nothing will
is.
slide off it. It may be soft, but that doesn't mean nothing's going to slide off it. It's binding.
Well,
Yeah,
exactly.
just-
And this is all eroded. So what there was construction clay over all of this. It's just that the rain eventually took it down because it's such a steep slope. It's much steeper than the Pyramid of the Sun. So the reason that we believe that there were these soft layers between the clay stones is that it would help with earthquake mitigation. And you see the soft layering throughout the pyramid complex. There's huge 1 or 2 or 3 meter tall or deep soft clay between concrete layers in the Pyramid of the Sun or above them. And you're like, wow, that would really take the kinetic energy of the earthquake and it would let the structure stand. It wouldn't topple because it would sort of softly accept the kinetic energy. It's a genius way to build.
That's right. And therefore, like hot and cold does, it makes things stretch and or stretch out or draw close together. So in these type of forces, there's a little leeway, so it all acts, it self-pressurizes itself, so things aren't sliding off, things aren't moving. This thing could literally take the pressure.
Yeah, so I think another word we could use is elastic. I mean, it gives an elasticity to the structures, you know.
Yeah, look how amazing that is. And this is just one spot. This is just one spot. And look at that clay. Oh my gosh. It looks so worked. I mean, like it was deliberately, it had to be. And that makes sense. So something or someone's needed to help press it down as it's laid. Okay, and then whenever or however it's decided, then they fire it.
And these all came out of the hill. In other words,
Right.
these were not the ones where this. I mean, at least this one. This is in a gully so it came out of where it used to be. It wasn't here when they placed it. It was meant to never be seen. It was part of a constructed hill. We're only looking at it and we're going, well, that's really beautiful, but no one was ever meant to see this. It's this construction stone.
Well, right, and it looks worked. It doesn't look natural, like a shear off or something, or, even though it's displaced from wherever it was, it still looks worked. Am I right here? I mean, the scalloping, you can see it.
Right, scalloping or texturing. And so there's this, I call it gouging or texturing. And then you have these weird clay like worms on top, like some kid came along and was playing and he put a clay worm on it while it was cooling or something. Then you've got these white scratches. You're like, what?
It was more liquidy.
Oh, yeah.
So so wham, maybe they took their fingers off or their trowels or whatever, and they just slap it, and it creates that whipping drip, like, you know what I mean?
Could be, yeah.
I'm a painter, so, hey, you're used to those type of, it definitely looks like a whipping effect from something dripping off of a tool.
Well,
Wow.
The weird thing is that Seminary doesn't have time to even look at any of this texturing information. He's so busy touring the world. He's so speaking about the pyramids in Bosnia. He's so busy getting the Pyramid of the Sun excavated, the largest documented pyramid in the world. I mean, Vratnica Mountain is much larger. It's 1,300
Well,
meters.
the foundation, I understand that, and I'm sure the people can respect that. I do. But the foundation would consider this to add to the data.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? I'm just saying that, it's great to have.
Oh, look at that.
The more people we can have that come out, independent researchers. If you're a tourist and you come out and you take a photo that's a great photo or 1,000 great photos, put those in a folder on Facebook or put those in a blog. you're now a scientist. You're giving us evidence that the scientists can use, other scientists can use. That's what we need. We need to keep helping each other accrue data, you know.
Exactly. Quality camera, video camera, and a real good shovel. And I think all this could be accomplished.
Yeah, and just to let people know, this is another example of that soft clay as an earthquake mitigation, probably, and then the hard baked clay stone. Then the soft clay again, hard baked clay stone, soft clay, hard baked clay stone. It goes all the way up. That's what the hill is. It's clay.
Clay and concrete.
Now I want to mention this other thing, which is that the etymology of clay is glue. If you look at the ancient history of the word clay, it's gley. It's gleya.
Huh.
So it's gley, and that meant glue. So our word clay actually refers to glue. It doesn't refer to dirt. We think of clay as some kind of dirt in the ground. It means nothing to us. But the ancients thought of it as glue, and they used it to create the hardest concrete in the world and to create hills and Vratnica Tumulus and all these structures in Bosnia.
Yeah, this ain't no Play-Doh.
It's incredible.
That's for sure. It is incredible, because then, you know, they could, like this thing here we're looking at, it's evenly spaced. Well, look at that. Look how that's been worked. And then that was fired too. That had to have been heated, correct?
It's pure clay, and it was clearly heated. You know, look at the side of it. It's pure clay.
To make it harder, right?
Yeah.
So wow, look at that.
So Semir did tests on the concrete in the Pyramid of the Sun, and he found out from lab analysis that the clay had been heated up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that is insane amount of heat. How would anybody in modern times heat up concrete to 900 degrees Fahrenheit on a 44 degree slope and not have the concrete slip down the slope as the heated clay is trying to bind with the rocks, and you're like, how does it not slip down the slope? I mean, it's impossible.
You're not finding any burnt wood debris or coals or anything mixed in with this as it was drying either.
No way.
So that makes you wonder.
Right, and one of the key arguments against the pyramids in Bosnia, somehow it's a bizarre argument. They say, it's natural rippling from rivers, and this one rock, it's not a rock. This is a concrete construction material that the ancients used.
And you can tell it looks worked.
But it looks like this is the closest one to natural rippling that we've seen. But once you come out and you start to see what it is in the bigger picture, then you start to go, oh wait, it's actually part. See this inclination, this inclined line there.
That's the whole pyramid.
It's all leaning into the face of the structure. And then you've got the soft clay, and then you've got the soft clay, and then the hard baked clay. So this is all, we had to excavate this. This was all under tons and tons and tons and tons of concrete, of soft construction clay that they stuck on there to make sure that this thing would not get wet, probably. And last
a long time.
Yes, and there's probably other reasons that are energetic reasons, because clay is conductive, it's crystalline and therefore conductive, and this is all clay too. So the hard clay and the soft clay working together as a conductive mechanism would work really well for
batteries. People remember the Baghdad batteries? Wasn't it clay jars that held material to make the batteries?
Well, and the Orthodox.
Isn't it also clay that we were also fashioned as, supposedly? If you go by Sitchin as well as even the Bible, we had to be mixed in a clay dish, a clay bowl, for it to work.
Well,
ain't that interesting? Properties.
The Orthodoxy would say that the Baghdad battery was very primitive, but see,
I meant because of the clay. There's the connection between clay and conductivity, electricity, as well as creating man.
So the thing about clay is that it's not a primitive substance. It's the best, most magical substance, and the ancients knew that. So if you see a piece of clay from ancient times, it might be from a primitive society who didn't really know its magical properties, but it also might be from an ancient culture that knew how magical clay is. So look at the inclination of this fully clay. This is all baked clay, and it's concretized, but it's not. It doesn't have a lot of pebbles in it. Riverstone's got little tiny stones there. Then there's more here. It's morphs from sort of really concrete there, and it kind of looks really concrete down there once you get closer. But then it morphs to more just pure clay. So it's like. And then, so we know it's not rippling, this natural rippling. It's clearly a constructed feature, even though it does have sort of rippling qualities.
All right, and the way the patterns look, it looks like it's deliberate. It looks like there's an order to it.
Yeah.
As it was in this particular, and that one especially. Look at that. That's amazing. Well, describe to them what we're seeing here, sir.
It's the same one from a slightly different angle. It's so... but you can kind of see it's not a right angle on the right here, but because it's leaning into the face of the hill. So it's not a right angle to the earth. It's not perpendicular, but it would be a right angle if you tip the stone to the right. Then you'd see that this and this was essentially a right angle. But like I said, they're not precious about their right angles. It's just, so there it is. That's another angle. That's looking. So I was standing up here before.
But they really are. They really efficient on what they pattern on top. It is obvious.
Yeah, and this is sort of the big picture of this one area with this. Here's where the ripple texturing is, right? And you can see it's clearly a constructed. Everything is leaning into the pyramid. This is the Pyramid of the Sun, and this is the first site you come to, and you're like, oh, that could be a stone, and you're like, whoops, no, because it's not. You see that it's concrete down here. Then it morphs into more just pure clay, and it's so strong, and this is holding up the rest of the pyramid. But this isn't even the bottom. This is way, way up, like about a third of the way up the pyramid is where this is. So it's like you got to go way down to the Phoenix. It's really far down to get to the very bottom. And then, like you said before, how far below the river, how far below the pyramids are they building,
Exactly. 202-559-7943. Again, calling on the timeline zone. You're listening to the Martian Revelation with our guest, Mr. Jock Doubleday. 202-559-7943. Only able to hear this behind this shield of L&M. So, wow, that one's interesting. We're down now at the river's edge.
Yeah, we're sort of, we're near we're near the bank of the Vratnica River. This is at the bottom of the Pyramid of the Sun, also the bottom of Osceola Hill, but we're closer to the Pyramid of the Sun. So we see that it's still a constructed material. The riverbed is constructed, and this is pretty incredible because no one's ever found a built river. No one's ever even thought about built rivers before.
Right, and that's the key to it. Built river. I mean, the whole area. Never mind the built river and the pyramid. We're talking about hills and mountains. What people thought of hills and mountains. Look, people have been living up on the slopes of this pyramid for how many centuries or whatever, and they have no clue until all this. And that's an amazing aspect of this story. But yes. For them to do the river, that means at some point in time, there was no water there, or it was blocked off somewhere until this was completed and the dam broke to allow it back in, or to steer it from one place to another. I don't know. I mean, what is the scale of intelligence, you think, Jock? I mean, I think it's higher than human because this boggles the humans that live around it now.
Well, it's funny because the people that live in Visoko, they fish in this river, they swim, their kids go down. No one's ever thought, oh, this is built. But when you start to think about what the ancients would do in the past, if they're going to build pyramids and set them down on soft soil, that's insane because the water's going to come and erode your pyramid. So you don't do that. Right. What you do is you build the rivers first and you build the pyramids up as part of the riverbed structure. So it's one structure.
in and as part of the river. That is the river.
That is the river.
Literally.
And you can see the curving nature of everything the ancients do. Everything is curving, and you're like, what is it all about? Now you've got these layers that are just insistent, and they're angled against the flow of the river, so they're up against the flow. And you're like, why would they do that? Well, the one possibility is that it creates turbulence, and that helps to make little vortexes that create a scalar informational vortex every time a little tiny vortex happens in the water, and it's creating scalar power and creating scalar information, and that can be used.
What it could also do, it could also ensure that there's never a torrential flood, and if there is, it won't be that destructive because it stops the flow and it guides the flow. But you could tell that just by how the layers that we're seeing and what we're seeing exposed in these images. Again, listeners, this show will appreciate later, but you'll see this and you can picture if water goes against it, you can see how the way these things are positioned and angled could help steer that water or prevent an onrush. Control. Water control.
Right, and what people should know about the Vojnica River, and by the way, it's pronounced Vojnica like mozzarella to people who want to know. It looks like, yeah, Vojnica. The Bosnians spell it Fojnica. Vojnica Rijeka is what they say. This is flowing left in this photo. So the water, if we made a riverbed, if we built a riverbed, we'd just make it flat and make it out of concrete. In fact, that's what I was expecting to find when I thought, hey, maybe I should check out the river. I thought it would be concrete. I thought it would be flat. No, they didn't do it like we did at all. I mean, it's completely mysterious what they did.
Concrete.
Well, I found baked clay that's as hard as concrete, because the reason the concrete's so hard is because of the clay. The reason the concrete is on the Pyramid of the Sun is 133.8 megapascals at its hardest is that the clay is so strong when it's heated. So this is heated clay. It's pure clay, and it's layered, and it's inclined, and it's adhered to the next layer. So each layer is adhered to the one below, and you're like, well, how would you adhere a layer that's meters and meters and meters long to the next? In other words, they had to all be cooling at the same time, basically, for them to adhere to each other. How did they do that? It's insane. Look at that.
That's why it had to, wow.
How would you do that?
It looks especially artificial. Again, it makes logical sense, as impossible and improbable people would think, but from the air and with something that could heat a pretty large area. I don't know, maybe lasers or what? I don't know. I don't think they'd be shooting fire torches. Again, 900 degrees minimum.
Yeah, they're not going to be using fire. They'd have to use sonic weapons, not weapons, but sonic scientific weapons.
Well, right. Scalaways, wow, it makes heat. That is really interesting. Look at that. And you could tell if the river too has had more water, how it would hit up against these things. You could see how these constructs would in fact slow the river, slow the rush. Now, if it was angled the other way or flat, it would help increase the speed, and then it could have the more power to erode features.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that people understand that this clay, this baked, adhered clay layering that the ancients created has withstood what the orthodoxy would say would have to be an erosive, erosional force of the river for thousands and tens of thousands of years. So it's essentially unchanged because it's so hard. I mean, this stuff is unbelievably hard. It's baked. Now, this is the riverbank, and it's eroded because there was a flood that came through. Normally, the Vojnica is very placid, but there was a flood that came through a few years before this was taken. It took a little bit of the riverbank away, so we have free excavation, and we get to see the side of the river, and we see how it's still built. It's still built. And we see the the baked clay stone really thick. Then we see the soft clay. Then we see another one that's less thick, baked clay stone. So it's soft clay, hard clay, soft clay, hard clay. It just goes up and it becomes the Pyramid of the Sun. This is the beginning of the Pyramid of the Sun. This riverbank.
Wow. So that's evidence right there. That means, and that means the bottom of the 45 or 40 whatever degree angle slope going up toward the top, right? That's the bottom of it.
That's the bottom, right? And it isn't that steep there at the bottom as you saw in the photos. Let's see. I'm just gonna grab this guy. Let's see. Grab this guy. So, are you seeing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Amazing.
So,
Look at the side slope on the left there.
so you see it kind of
Goes
levels
all-
out when it gets to the river.
Yep.
So
That's where the other slope is on the north face, but it's covered.
So we were down there. Actually, we were kind of down there when we were with those photos. So
Right.
it's really easy to live there because it's not too steep. And then it starts to really get steep. And then up here it's really, really steep. So it's really hard. And all these angles are the same. And that's another reason that Semir Osmanagic knew that this was a built structure, because that the slope angles were the same. So
Hey, you can tell just by looking at it. I mean, damn,
Yeah.
that's a pyramid. I mean, the first time I seen it years ago when it was touted, and when people were saying hoax, I was like, let me look at this crap. And I'm like, damn, that's a pyramid. What are these people talking about? Start digging. And then he did. And
yeah,
look what
and
we're
you and
from-
I were talking
look at
about the height
What
of the
is
pyramid.
this?
We talked about the height of the pyramid earlier, and Semir Osmanagic measures the pyramid from right here, this line right here. Your
From the
listeners, and
base
your viewers should
what
know
face?
that this is
Right.
where he measures it from. This is a hill that comes up and abuts the pyramid, and he says, okay, from here to here is 220 meters, straight up. Now the pyramid.
Let's dig into that hill. I bet he'll find more blocks. I'm just saying. Look, one of the neighbors living on it, though maybe not down that far, already discovered it. Why not someone of those people test it?
The Great Pyramid in Egypt is 147 meters. With the capstone that's not there, it's 147 meters, and this is 220. So the Great Pyramid, if you start here, would go up to about there. Now, so it's already taller if you just measure from here. But if you measure from the
Right.
river, which is the riverbed is the real bottom of the pyramid. So if you go straight up, we're talking about 360 to 380 or even more meters. We don't know yet. And also, this area was taken down
Wouldn't it be
sometime
funny
in
if
the
it's
past.
365?
So
That number
this-
seems to be embedded around in pyramids, right? 365? But go ahead.
Yeah, so this was actually taller. This was taken off. So this is actually supposed to, if you just like with the capstone and the Great Pyramid was taken off, and they always do a virtual top for it. The virtual top of this pyramid is actually about there. So if you measure from here to there, it's probably about 400 meters straight up from the riverbed. That's how tall the Great the Great Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia is.
Wow, that is amazing.
2 days ago, we were talking about the trees on the Pyramid of the Sun, and we saw all those evergreen trees that were on the pyramid. But this is before the trees were planted. See, there are no large trees on this pyramid in the past. 60 years ago, the city government, it's been probably 65 by now, but the city government planted trees on this pyramid. No, I don't know exactly why they did that, but we know that China did the same thing to hide the pyramid. So there's these trees that come up and then they stop about there. No natural evergreens on any of the structures anywhere in the complex. There's little scrubby trees that sort of cover it, like so they
Right.
it looks green, but it was never big trees. Now here's another photo coming up of the pyramid complex before the trees were planted. So you can see the naked pyramid there, and there's the Pyramid of Love, which is tied to it with the concrete and clay staircase in this crevice right here. Super strong structure.
Look how geometric. Look how geometric it looks.
And it's so strong because this is tied to this, and those are tied to the river, and the river's tied to Osceola Hill. It's all one structure. I can't find anything natural here. I've been way beyond this photo everywhere. I can't find anything natural. You find some natural soil that's covering everything, and then below the soil you start to find the artificial structures. And you're like, how old is this place, and who spent all this energy building this massive megastructure, you know?
And then it makes you wonder, on top of that, if you could fathom that, what was able to cover it, everything, the whole region, with the dirt that covers it now. And on that note, we're going to go to a break for about 5 minutes. So, again, pack them and smoke them, because I know I still need them. And look at that patch. It's still there being booming. Is that the spot? That's the spot. There's something there. But anyway, we shall be back with Jock Doubleday. I don't know about you, but I'm having a grand old time. I want to get my ass to Bosnia. We shall be back.
I'll be back.
Don't run. We are your friends.